DreAllDay.com.
Baldwin, DreAllDay.com, balloverseas.com. We're talking overseas basketball. The question is, can playing semi-pro basketball help me with my career as far as playing, let's just say, full pro basketball? The answer to the question is, it depends. It depends on multiple factors here as far as when it comes to the whole subject of basketball. And people sometimes ask me these two-dimensional absolute questions like, well, if I do this thing and I do this thing, like if I go to an exposure camp, does that guarantee that I'll get a job playing overseas? Or if I go to this academy, does it guarantee that I'll get an agent? Or if I put together a game film, does it guarantee that some team's going to want to sign me? Or if I invest in myself in any way, whether that's in getting a book for free and you pay for the shipping, or if it's going to an exposure camp, it's going to cost you $300 fee and you got to pay another $5 for the flight and the hotel. Is making that investment guaranteed to produce a result for me? I want all you to understand something. And this is I'm talking about overseas basketball, but understand the principle that I'm going to share with you here applies to all of life. Just because let me back up. Taking certain actions almost never in life guarantees a result. The only place in life where a guarantee comes before the work is in the dictionary, as they say. I had to make sure the G comes before the W there when I was saying that. But y'all have heard that before. Some people say the only place where success comes before work. You have to make the investment. The investment is the time that you put in, the work that you do, developing your game, then performing your game, and then producing a result. Understand that this professional basketball world is a performance and results-based business. First of all, you do the work on your game to create an opportunity. Then you got to go out there and perform. You get on that court and don't perform, I don't care if you did everything else right, you are not moving forward if you don't perform on that court. You could have been the best player in the world in your neighborhood park and in your rec leagues, even in your college or whatever. Then you get out of school, you don't have any offers, you don't have any agent wanting to sign you. You go to an exposure camp for 3 days and you're trashed for that 3 days. The 4 years that you dominated in college, if that wasn't enough to get you a deal, if that footage wasn't enough to get you a deal and you're trash at the exposure camp, doesn't matter that you were great in college. The answer to the question is no. Unless you can keep working that footage from college and maybe you can get somebody interested in you. If you can keep working it, maybe then you can. But the fact that you were trash at the exposure camp cancels out whatever else you have done or whatever you want to say about yourself. You got to perform. And when you get on that court and perform, especially once you get into the leagues, especially when you get signed with a team, you got to help that team produce results. Remember that it's not just about stats when you're playing overseas. You got to help that team succeed. If the team is not succeeding, even if you have great performance personally, then you could lose your job. What does all this have to do with semi-pro basketball is this. The reason why the answer is it depends is that it depends on what team you're playing for when you're playing semi-pro. And for those of you who don't know what semi-pro is, it's a league where it is technically professional basketball because maybe you'll get paid a few dollars for playing in some games. Maybe they'll even put you in some housing, but most of the time what I've seen with semi-pro basketball is that it'll be set up. I should have said this first. The setup will be there'll be a local team that plays games against other teams in the area, usually within driving distance for all the players to play in those games. And you may make a few dollars for playing. Maybe you get paid every game that you show up to, because sometimes with semi-pro basketball, players can't even make it to every game because you got kids and you got a job and you got other things going on in your life. So whichever games you can make it to, you get paid for those games that you play in, and maybe you get paid more if you win and things like that. And you're playing against other teams who are similar. I've seen in the past, I'm talking maybe 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, I've seen setups for semi-pro teams where they would actually have housing and they would house you in that area, and you could still have a full-time job, but you would have a housing that you stayed in and you would get paid something, but it wasn't enough for you to sustain yourself as an adult. Nowadays, what I've mostly seen and heard about when it comes to semi-pro basketball is the setup that I said before, which is you live your normal life, but you go play in the games with that team and you get your footage and you get your money, and maybe more if you win than they have is elite. So there's stats, there's video, it might be an all-star game, there's playoffs, there's a championship, all of that. I remember when I was young, I'm talking when I was in my teens, back in Philadelphia, PA, where I'm originally from, I would see the older guys who were in their 20s and mostly in their 20s, they would be playing semi-pro basketball. They didn't explain it all out to me, but I could just tell from listening to their conversations that that's what they were playing. Now that I understand what it is, they would go play in these leagues. The games would be maybe every week or a couple times a week. And if they could make it to the game, they would go play. If they couldn't make it, they just wouldn't go. And these guys were really good basketball players. I mean, they weren't superstars. They weren't overseas guys. They weren't full-fledged professionals, but these guys could go. And they would get paid for the games that they showed up to, and there was a whole league, and they took it seriously, and they wanted to win the championship. And that's just the way it went. That's the way semi-pro basketball works. So why is the answer then, after all this explanation, why is the answer that it depends if semi-pro basketball can help you get overseas? Because it depends on who you're playing with. Are you playing with people who can actually play? Who are you playing against? Are you playing against players who are good? What does your footage look like? Because you must have footage from playing semi-pro. I thought you would understand that by this point. You've been listening to me for any amount of time, but I want to make sure that I say it. The way that you could leverage your semi-pro basketball experience into an overseas opportunity is that you take the footage from your games and you can show that to an agent or to teams or anyone who is connected in the overseas world who has the leverage and the power to actually help you get an opportunity. But you need the footage. The footage is key, because I promise you no overseas basketball scout is flying from somewhere in Europe over to whatever town you live in to watch you play in a semi-pro basketball game. I've never heard of that happening before. So if it happens to you, you will be the first one. And don't think that the overseas basketball it's not a pipeline from semi-pro straight to overseas. It doesn't really work that way. So that footage, if it's a good footage, and let me tell you what good footage means. Have good players on your team. Be playing against players who can play. The gameplay needs to look like players are actually really playing. All right, if you play in a semi-pro league and the gameplay looks like a pickup game where nobody's really playing defense and one person gets the ball, they walk the ball up the court, and everybody else is walking up the court, and then everybody stands around and watches you play one-on-one with whoever's guarding you. That kind of footage, even though you may think is great, and even though you've probably seen NBA players playing pickup games just like that, I know I have, overseas teams are looking at that footage and they're not shaking their head no. Like, okay, we can't sign this guy off of this. Even if you're out there looking like James Harden, we can't sign this guy off of this because there's nothing on that in this footage that shows us that this guy can play the kind of games that we play in. All right, we don't. Overseas basketball is not like that. Everybody just standing around, walking up and down the court, while two people go one-on-one. Basically, it's 10 people on the court, but it's basically a game of one-on-one, and everybody just takes turns playing one-on-one. That's not the way that it works. So if your semi-pro league looks like that, nobody's playing defense, nobody's playing hard. Nobody's playing hard when they don't have the ball. Let's say there's no movement off the ball. Doesn't look like anybody's running any plays. It's just basically a pickup game with refs and a scoreboard, and y'all got uniforms on. So then you're thinking that that's worth something. If that's what the footage looks like, if that's what the gameplay is like in whatever semi-pro league that you play in, that is not going to help you get into a professional basketball opportunity. It'd be great for you to play. You can get the game experience. You can work on your game. You can get some footage that you can post onto your Instagram or your YouTube or whatever you post to get yourself some attention from the peanut gallery of fans who or tell you that you should be playing in the NBA, but they don't know nothing about professional basketball. If all of those things help you feel good and they serve your ego, that's great. But is it going to help you get a job playing professional basketball overseas? The answer is hell no. So what you need to do, if you are playing semi-pro basketball and you want to leverage that into a professional basketball opportunity, let me tell you what you can do. First of all, you need to choose a league when you probably aren't going to have much choices. As far as I know, semi-pro leagues is usually maybe one in the area that you live. It's not like it's 10 different leagues and you got to pick which one you want to play in. Usually it's just one league and it's one team. So either you're going to play on that team and play in that league, or you're not playing at all, because it's not like, again, it's not like 10 teams in the same city. So hopefully, let's say, because it's not even your choice, hopefully the team and league that you play for and in respectively actually has some solid gameplay. Players are actually, y'all have practice on a consistent basis so that y'all are actually running plays. There's some real continuity. You know who your teammates are. Everybody knows their role. If someone was to watch that game, me or anyone else who can evaluate basketball, watch the game and say, okay, this looks like some people who actually want to play pro basketball. It doesn't look like a damn pickup game from the park or at the Equinox. All right, and I've talked about this enough. All right, if your semi-pro league looks like that, forget it. It's not helping you. And not to get overseas. It can help you work on your game and get experience and get a sweat going, or if you just use basketball for cardio, it can help you for that. But we're talking here about playing overseas. The league got to look like some actual people who want to play basketball for real. Y'all understand what I'm saying? And when I say for real, Remember what you're listening to. This is the Overseas Basketball Blueprint. All right, so when I say for real, I'm talking about overseas basketball. I'm not talking about for real, like everybody knows that they got game and this guy can jump 40 inches and this dude got handle. I don't care about none of that shit. I'm talking about, can you play in a 5-on-5 game with a coach in a league where everybody's getting paid? Okay, so hopefully you have that. If you do, then hopefully also there's a good videographer who is filming these games. I'm 99% sure every semi-pro league in the United States is filming their games these days because everybody wants their footage. If somebody makes one shot in the game, they can post that to their IG and they'll get their victory lap for that day. Y'all know what y'all be doing. So hopefully there's some good videography going on there so you get some quality footage that actually looks good. And this is something that actually matters. I'm gonna make a separate topic where I'm gonna actually talk about quality of video because this does actually matter, and I'll explain to you why. Then you take that footage and then you can send that to teams, you can send that to agents and get someone interested in you, and then you leverage that into your opportunity. I don't know of players who take their straight semi-pro game footage and get straight signed to a contract. You might get a tryout offer, you might get a workout offer, and you could possibly get an agent offer off of it. I don't know of players who have taken semi-pro game footage and got signed to an overseas team just because your footage was that great. Not saying that has never happened. I'm saying I don't know any player who's done that. So if there's a player who's done that, you can leave a comment or hit me up. My email, you can email at team@balloverseas.com and let us know that happened and give us some confirming third-party information that proves that what you're saying actually happened. So that's my answer on can semi-pro basketball help you play pro basketball overseas. Now, two things for you here. First of all, if you have not gotten your free copy of the Overseas Basketball Blueprint, get it at balloverseas.com. It's a 237-page book, everything you need to know about playing basketball overseas. And this is a new offer that I just added as of this recording right here. If you want to talk to me one-on-one, where I'm going to ask you some questions about your overseas journey, what you're working on, what your challenges are, what your needs are, so I can find out exactly where I can help, where we can help here, work on your game and at the Overseas Basketball Blueprint to help you and players like you get on playing overseas, because we know you ain't got forever to make it happen. Go to balloverseas.com/call, CALL, fill out a short form, and you're gonna get a call directly from me where I'm gonna ask you some questions about your journey and figure out how we can best tailor what we create moving forward to help you out. Again, that's at balloverseas.com/call, CALL, like call on the phone. And that's what I'm gonna be doing, calling you. So everybody, that's what it is. Work on your game. Dre all day, ball overseas.